Hey guys, this is Chesney Hawks here. You are watching My Hammers 11 with the one and only Russ.
Hi everybody, Russ from My Hammers 11. Hope you are all safe and well. That's what's important in this world at the moment. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware anytime we put new content on. As always, I'd love to thank our channel sponsors, Untuck It. Check them out in the description below. We have another great guest today. You may have heard of Bill. He's doing a lot of charity. He's doing a charity walk, doing a big walk soon, which we'll talk about in a minute. But how's things with you, Bill? How you doing, my man?
Yeah, things have been really well, mate. Things have been really well. I've just starting a new job, getting life back on track after COVID cooling down and everything else. So it's all looking good. It's all looking happy, and
Brilliant.
for once in my life, football's going well as well. So
yeah, and it really is. Yeah, I mean, I'm to be honest, I'm proper. No, maybe not. No, I don't. No, it was one time before then. But yeah, this is like, yeah, it doesn't happen very often. For a lot of people, this is the best time, isn't it, ever? This is for the less experienced fans. This season, whatever's going to happen by the end of it, is just incredible, isn't it? Absolutely mental. The whole thing. I just can't get my head. I still really can't get my head around it. The fact is we're equal points with Chelsea going into the weekend. This will probably be going out just on Saturday afternoon, just before kickoff, or around that time. But so we won't know the result. But obviously, it won't go out before the results. It doesn't matter. We can still look forward to it. And yeah, it's just mental. The whole season. Obviously the last 72 hours has been just as mental. But we can sort of go back to trying to qualify properly, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work because it's been very quiet on the old punishments, and obviously it's very up in the air on what FA and UEFA can do. But I think maybe for this season, or possibly next season, possibly the season after, I think there will be a European ban for these clubs just for UEFA to lift down and say, look, you can't with us. It's either you do your thing or you stay the way it is. And they've made their changes to the Champions League now, and you're hearing rumours about a British Super League, and it's a bit. It's just everything's trying to compete against this Super League nonsense, and even clubs like Barcelona, for example, they came out today, didn't they, saying that they're still 100% committed to joining the Super League, and it's a bit like, what are you doing? No one wants it. No,
well, it's gonna happen. It's not gonna. I mean, I think Big Sam said it the other day actually in his match press conference. We were saying it's not over with. It's just been put on hold. And it will be, the trouble is, unless something drastic happens in the way football's run, you'll always have the rich getting richer. And even now, as I said, even now, whoever qualifies, for the Champions League, albeit they have to earn it. Well, not even necessarily from 2024, you get the elite status potentially, where they throw, Liverpool could be 10th and qualify potentially, and the detriment to the team that finishes 4th potentially. But there's a lot more money in it, so they've won. They have won. Whatever happens, yeah. I think it was. I thought it was this big power play. It was never going to happen. It was just an attempt from those greedy 12 to get more money into the Champions League, and they got it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
but as you said,
that's what the thing is for me. I mean, the Real Madrid chairman, who's the director of this whole thing, he's even said we still want it to go ahead, and you're sitting there from an outside perspective now that R6 have left and a lot of the Italian teams have left. There's only 3 teams in it now. It's literally Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus, and they can't play each other 20 times throughout an entire season. So it's a bit, I don't know what they're going to do, honestly.
I don't think it's going to happen, man.
No, I believe the whole coefficient thing for UEFA in 2024 is ridiculous as well, because again, it's given them the same thing that the Super League would have given them in the sense that you're going to stay here whether you're good or not. And I agree with you. It has to be deserved. Whether you finish in the top 4 or you win your league, you have to grind and fight out for it.
Well, even the fact that the top 4 going to the Champions League, it's not really, very rarely is the Champions League actually won by a league champion. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not usually. Yeah, I mean, that is what it is, isn't it? There's nothing we can do. We just got to keep winning our games, win all our 6 cup finals, and we're in the Champions League, which
we beat Chelsea. I believe we'll be in the clear.
Yeah. Well, I thought the other day when we played Leicester, I said we had a Leicester guy on the channel recently, and I said whoever wins that game, I think will be in the Champions League. I don't think both of us will be in the Champions League. I think Chelsea are going to break up the party, and you never know. I mean, at the time of recording, they've Leicester are three up against West Brom at the moment after about 40 minutes. So yeah, so it's we'll see. You might get both of us. That would really piss them off, wouldn't it? If we both get third and fourth, that would really piss them off. I would love that.
It'll be like just karma, that, wouldn't it?
That would be
exactly
proper,
what they deserve.
Although it would mean that Man United got into the Champions League, and I'd rather, I still think that teams like Arsenal and City, not Arsenal, sorry, Chelsea and City, I reckon because City don't need any more money. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're, and Chelsea, all the others. So all the others that obviously have got sort of US owners who are not recent, sort of, not recently bought the club, but more. I mean, Abramovich has been around for 18 years. He ain't going nowhere, is he really? So he wasn't going to look to flip the club where all the others were. Yeah, you can see Liverpool in that lot. Couple of years in this Super League, guaranteed 300 million, few seasons of that. Right, we'll see you later. We're off, and
exactly.
And it was almost like they had to, fear of FOMO, wasn't it? And I think City and Chelsea almost had this sense of FOMO. They didn't want to miss out. You know what I mean? So and everyone else needed much. So obviously Tottenham need money to pay for their stadium and stuff like that. So we'll see. But as you said, I fancy us. I do fancy us against Chelsea.
Yeah, I really fancy us as well, because I think I saw it on. They were, and I believe I saw it on Twitter as well. I think David Moyes has got a 100% win record against Chelsea at home with us, since including the one game he had with Chelsea before Pellegrini came in, and this season we're 100% clear with them.
Brilliant.
And he's always had a good knack of fighting the big teams. I mean, this season we haven't seen it so much. I think he might have had a little inkling that they might have been trying something before, because when he played, I think our last game against United, and the FA Cup even, we played so defensively, and it was just with I've always said it to friends and stuff, if you're going against the big six, especially as someone that they look over constantly, it's just like you go in there and you attack them because they don't expect it, and it blows them back.
Yeah, it's a free hit, isn't it? I always see, City away, and I think at the moment every game is so unpredictable because there's no crowd. I think next season the same thing will happen. There'll be a lot of weird results while people hopefully readjust to getting a full capacity crowd and getting away fans potentially. There's going to be a learning, sort of almost like a reprogramming of the players to get them used to playing in front of a crowd again. It's going to be really weird, but I just think, I watched them the other day against Brighton and I weren't impressed. I really weren't impressed. I know maybe some of the players he was resting. It seemed it was quite funny how people are now resting players because they got West Ham coming up. That's a great compliment. It is a great compliment.
It's an excellent compliment. I mean, I think the best compliment we had this season was when we lost out very narrowly against City, when they beat us 2-1, and Pep Guardiola came out and he turned around and he was like, "This is the toughest team City's played all season." Yeah. I mean, where I used to work, there was a Tottenham fan, and this actually took me by surprise, and he literally turned around to me and he was like, "West Ham are the best team I've seen play this season." So that's coming from a Tottenham fan. Am I awake? Or?
God, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. No, it is. I mean, it's one of those things where I think we just got to enjoy the season. Wherever we finish, we finish. It'll be a great season, and as you said, in everything else that's going on in the world, we don't have to worry about West Ham, and that's been a bit of a relief, as you said. So
yeah.
Well, usually they're the bane of our lives. They're the sort of the break in our lives, to enjoy it. And every time a game finishes, I can't wait for the next one. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even like the Newcastle. I mean, with everything that's gone on in the world, we forgot that we lost to Newcastle, really. And
exactly.
But even coming out that second half, and we were like, oh, we lost, but we gave it a bloody good try with 10 men. Do you know what I mean? And came back, and almost nicked a point. And it's just a different team, man. Totally different team. I was talking to a guy, an ex-Hammer. Actually, we'll go out after this. I was talking to Scott Minto today and was interviewing him. And obviously, he was part of that team which was the highest Premier League finish when he finished fifth. And we did fifth, we did ninth the year before, fifth, ninth, seventh, or something like that. And he was talking about the team spirit, and we made parallels to how this team is now. You know, you can't go out and go on the lash anymore now. You can't go to the pubs anyway, really, apart from if you're outside the table of six. But you know, they don't go out and get pissed together. But you just see this real team spirit and all the behind the scenes training stuff the club put out and stuff. You know, it just shows, you know, this is a special bunch of players, and hopefully, you know, we can add to it in the summer and have a prolonged period in the top 10. You know what I mean? That's what we need. That's what we are. We're a top 10 team. You know, so we'll see.
That's literally it. We are a top 10 team. I know we've had our ups and downs in the past, and I'm in a WhatsApp group with 3 of the 6. So I've got a Liverpool fan, a Chelsea fan, a United fan, and they all keep calling us relegation fodder every season. I'm like, hang on, you have your toughest games against us, and exactly. It's almost like as I mentioned to you before it went on, I was a fan that grew up in the mid-90s, so I never got to see a high level of success from West Ham. I think the best league I saw was Billich's the final season at the Bowling.
It would have been, because you were too young.
Yeah, that shirt there. Yeah, and it was it's just been excellent, and I feel like if we get Champions League football, I think we'll finish 5th and hopefully push into Europa and have a good season there next year.
I think so, yeah. I'm not particularly bothered where we finish now, I'll be honest. I know it's great to have Champions League football, but we'll get some European football, which is great. And for me now, it's where we finish next season, because, you know, you see someone like Wolves, and Wolves will obviously flying higher. Technically, for a while they changed their club changed their Twitter handle to Premier League Champions 2019 to 20, and because they were 7th and they were flying, and they played so many games this season, they haven't been so strong. And so, you know, that's the only. But then that's a typical West Ham in me. He's always looking for that sort of dark cloud coming over. Oh yeah, we qualified, but our squad's not. We haven't got squad depth. We need to invest. You know, just calm down.
I was saying that at half time when we was 2-0 down against Newcastle. Like, this is the West Ham, I know.
This is back. I was getting texts. Yeah, loads of texts and DM messages going back. Here we go. We're back to normal, guys. You know, normal service has been resumed. It's like, we were allowed a blip, as long as that's all of our mistakes out for the rest of the next 6 games done. Because there was 3 or 4 classic West Ham errors, and as long as that's it now, I'm happy.
Exactly.
And hopefully every game we get more players coming back and stuff, you know. So hopefully, you know, we might have, you know, Crest might be back, and Masuaki might be back for Chelsea, and Burnley, Deck might be back, and, you know, that's all we need to do now. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. And it's nice not having to, shit ourselves that we're not, you know, we're going to go down or whatever. You know, it's just like, now we're worried if we're going to finish 4th. It's like, I still can't get my head around that whole changing mentality. It's very strange where you don't have to scroll down to see us in the league table. We're just there, you know. It's like, brilliant. I'll take that.
Sticks out like a sore thumb at the moment.
It does. It really does. It really does. I love it.
It's a weird situation that we're sitting in as well, because this time 3 or 4 years ago, you would never have said that David Moyes would have been a better manager than Manuel Pellegrini. No. And yet here he is now. It's almost like he's had the 18 months out before we re-signed him in again, and he had that and he just studied us for that year and a half, and saw where we were going wrong, and immediately focused straight onto those points. And it's hard to see West Ham not be typical West Ham for once in a very long time.
Well, especially when they had, as you said, when there's talk of the top 6, the greedy 6, you know, being chucked out, and then they had all the if they got chucked out and they took all their scores away, you know, we've only lost to one team in the bottom half all season. It's been Newcastle twice, you know, and it's and that is so unlike West Ham, isn't it? It's always the Burnleys and the Sheffield Uniteds that we always stumble in, but we seem to be picking up more points there, which is great, you know. So I think Moyes is great. I was a bit gutted that we got rid of him, because I think, you know, it was sort of building up. You could see building blocks happening, and you know, I mean, even you mentioned even the Slav season at the Bowling. It was a great season, but I wouldn't say it was a plan. You know, it's like it was, apart from just pass it to Payet, really.
Yeah, he just winged it for most of the season.
He did. Where this guy, he's like, if we go 1-0 down, I'm not worried. We've had how many injuries? We've been reasonably lucky with injuries to our key players, but we have always had sort of 1 or 2 out every game. It seems, whether it is Antonio, whether it is Masuaku, or it has sort of chops and changes, and the boys have still done the business, which is great. And we'll see what happens, man. Anyway, we'll talk about the charity stuff in a minute, but I want to talk about you first, Bill. Why West Ham, Bill? Why is it your club? 15 minutes in, first question. Why is West Ham your club?
I mean, it's a fairly easy question. I think most fans my age and around my generation will say the same thing as me. My old man brought me in.
Yeah.
He was a massive influence to my life when I was growing up. He took me to my first game. I can't remember. I must have been about 4 or 5, so barely breached the mark of being able to remember the past. And we used to sit in the West Stand upper. I think just after they had. I think it might have been the season or 2 before they'd redeveloped that whole stand and made it bigger, made it as big as they did. And I just fell in love with the team. I fell in love with Bowling Park and Upton Park, and just the atmosphere of going to and from the games. And when we'd win, it'd be fantastic because my dad would drive home from Canning Town to Isle of Dogs, and it'd be honking his horn, and you could hear all the crowd. And even though there was a lot of traffic and it took us an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to get 5 miles, it was always a great atmosphere. And I just fell in love with the team. And obviously growing up, when I was in school and stuff, everyone was supporting Arsenal or Man United or even Tottenham, which is very rare in East London. And it was a situation of just like, why do you like your team so much? They don't win games. And it's just like, that's from very early on, I've learned what football is. It's about being in a community and actually falling in love and bleeding your team. And for me, from that day on, I always just wanted to be West Ham. And even growing up, I always wanted to know about our past. I know how important Bobby Moore is to us. And a couple of years ago, my dad, borrowed me the 1964 50th anniversary when we beat Preston North End. I think you got it as a season ticket. And I sat there and I watched that because I love our past, and we've always been that club that's been always about community and about fans, and whether you win, lose or draw, you're still going to be West Ham. Yeah,
it's so true, and that's what I think. So that's what I think is so cool. And as you said, I think because we've had such a rich history, everyone wants to find out about it. When I've interviewed loads of fans, to be honest, most people enjoy the older listen to the older fans and the older players because they don't know necessarily much about the history. They know of Bobby Moore, and obviously you saw some of his games and know of Johnny Harris and Vic Watson and people like this, but they know of them as a name rather than sort of living through the experiences of the older fans, if that makes sense. So when we do the 11s and they pick Budgie Byrne and stuff like that, and they talk about them in the same way that probably you and me would talk about Mikel Antonio or Dimitri Payet, you're learning through them. It's sort of living history, and particularly ex-players. I mean, we had like people like Brian Deere and stuff like that who played with Bobby in the 60 in the European Cup Winners' Cup and stuff like that. And some of the stories of football of old, how they used to run miles and miles and miles all the way around Chadwell Heath for like 20 odd miles, then come back to a full roast dinner with all the trimmings and shit like that. And it's like, and you're like, geez, it's like football's so different now, but it was so pure then. He would get the Bobby would get the bus to the stadium, or Brian had a little chopper like pedal bike and would bike to the stadium and stuff. And nowadays, obviously, they've got their Lambos and stuff like that. Football's moved on, but I find it fascinating. I find that our history fascinating, and I think as a club we really embrace that. The stands are all ex players and legends of the game, and there's obviously you got the Champions Walk, you got the stones on the floor, and it's still steeped in history, and it always will be because it's in fabric of the club, and it's great, man. I mean, and go on, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no worries, that's fine. I mean, for me, Yeah, it's just like you said. It's always about the steep to history, and it always has to pass through the generations. But the
Yeah.
one thing that I will always, after we left the bowling, the one thing that I will always be upset about, and I even think about it sometimes when I go to West London Stadium, like when I'm in my dad's shoes and I'm bringing my little boy to West Ham,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the same because we won't be able to share that same first stadium, and we won't be able to share that first experience because the atmosphere is great in the London Stadium when the game's over and we're finished, but it's now sort of more into the tune of, all right, game's over, it's time to go home, we can enjoy the walk there. Whereas
Sure.
Upton Park, you used to walk out onto the main road on Green
Yeah.
Street, and the traffic couldn't even get through. We're holding back buses, and cars are honking at us, and it's those moments, and it's all about creating the new stuff now. And
It's
we've only
true.
been in the stadium 5 years, 6 years, I
5 years. Yeah.
believe,
Yeah.
5 years, and it's been we're gonna make history there one way or another. We might not win a Champions League there, but there could be an FA Cup down the line, and who knows? In about 40 years,
Definitely.
maybe we
Yeah.
might even lift the Premier League trophy.
You never know. You never know. And I think you're right. I think it's indicative of the modern game as well. That you don't these stadiums in the middle of cities. You can't develop them to the level of going off land. And even like I feel the same way about Wembley. I hate Wembley. I find it really just bland outside. I loved it when we spent we had 3 years. We went to Cardiff, and Millennium Stadium was a really unusual stadium in that it is bang in the middle of Cardiff, but it's a 80,000 stadium with all the pubs, and you get that. So you got that sort of, as you said, that sort of old school mentality. Go to the pub and then literally walk to the game, and still 80,000 people there. And I felt I don't feel the same way about Wembley. Wembley was, it's iconic, but I just don't. It's for as you say, as an experience. You don't get that experience until maybe you're in the stadium. And this is probably the same as London Stadium. It's the same as if you go to the Emirates. It's the same as if you go to Main Road, the main road. How old am I? The Etihad and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It's these big stadiums, and there was something special about Upton Park. You could put your hands to the railings, and the players would sign your autographs. Now they're all these big stadiums, like they're sort of parts around the side underneath, so you can't do that anymore now. And in fact, I was talking to Scott about this exact same thing. For me now, football is more aspirational rather than relatable. So, where, and this is in preceding your time, it's sort of the early 90s. I reckon the late 90s was probably the last time it was where, I used to live in Loughton. Every West Ham player lived around Loughton, Epping, Waltham Abbey, all around there, or Tottenham player. They also live around that area. And you'd literally I used to work in the supermarket, and every Friday, Shaka Hislop would do his big shop. So I would change my shifts around. So I was always working Friday, like 5 o'clock straight after school, knowing that Shaka was going to be there if we weren't playing away. And we'd always, and that was so exciting for me. You don't get that in now, because obviously football is now about aspirations. They're all earning, and no, I'm not slagging off any footballers at all, because at the end of the day, if I had the money, I'd be living in Canary Wharf on a penthouse suite and not having to pop to the co-op for a pint of milk and a loaf of bread, which I had to do today. You know what I mean? And so it does make, it's a different game now. It is a different game now. And that's what I think you miss. And you're right. It's that sort of, I mean, my daughter, she's 8. And so she'll always know, she just knows West Ham play at London Stadium near Westfield. She goes, she'll go shopping with mummy, and I can go to football. That's basically what she does. And when she could do that, that's the case. But I made sure though she stepped foot in Upton Park when she was 3, just so she could, I know that she was there.
Yeah,
she don't remember it. She claims she does. She claims she does, because I had my pass, so I could go in and sort of sneak round. And I got a picture of her sitting in the dugout, and I turned to and I got a picture of her. I bought her a new shirt, and so she was stood on the side of the pitch like she'd been signed. And then I turned around to my wife, and she'd basically bolted right through like the pitch, like halfway line. She was gone. She was, Flo, come back. She was trying to get. I think she was trying to do a Klinsmann at the end, But yeah, no one saw me, which was good. But at least we've got that experience. But I know exactly what you mean, man. It's but as you said, it's a new stadium, and as I said, we're only 5 years into it. We were there for 100 years at Upton Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there were some times where it was shit. People forget about when it was pissing it down and the district line was down, and you had to do that long trudge back to Barking, get the bus to Stratford, and used to hate that.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do no social distancing there. Christ.
No,
Christ.
of course not. No, I think that's one of the great things about West Ham as well, because obviously you mentioned it earlier that the players, you don't get that experience like you did at Bowling Ground, where the players' car park was right next to the entrance, and you could reach your hand through and they'd high five you or whatever, and you don't get it now. But the West Ham players, when they're seen on the street or fans approach them on the street, they're always welcoming and they have a photo. So they've always got that sense of community. And we're never going to get moments like my dad did with Bobby Moore. I think it was the season after West Ham won the World Cup. He was sat in a chicken run with his mate Paul, and it was actually his mate that told me the story, not my dad. So I was a bit, why are you not telling me this, Dad? But the balls rolled out. I think it was against Blackburn, I think they said it was, and the balls rolled out for a throw-in, and they're both sat there watching, and the players come running up, and he's picked up the ball. And my dad was sat right in the front row, and he's ruffled my dad's hair and threw the ball. I was like, all right, who was the player that did that then? And his mate turned around and went, it was Bobby Moore. It's like, you're kidding me. Why have you not told me about this?
I love it,
said
man.
to him, that's why he's still got hair to this day, Dad.
Yeah, it was being touched by God. That was why. He should have done a go at me quickly. He should have a bit late for me now, unfortunately. But yeah, but that's it. It's little things like that stay with you for the rest of your life, and there's loads. I was reading them off the other day, and it was just hilarious. It was almost like a script from like an Alan Partridge sketch. It's like, I once saw Paul Kitson in Woolworths buying a big bag of Pick a Mix. It's shit like that. But it was fun. There was nothing. It was the most exciting thing in the world if you saw a football player walking down the high street.
Yeah.
You would like sneak him, what's he doing? What shop's he going into? I'm going to go in that shop. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. And it's something which, I just don't think you'll ever get that again. Although I think West Ham, if you look at all the teams, particularly in the Premier League, I think our squad is probably the most old school, if that makes sense, because I think Deck's very old school and Mark's an old school, and I can see that the Czech boys being quite old school. I mean, Soufal gets the bloody bus in, you know what I mean? So stuff like that, I love it. I just think we still have that sort of characters, there's not a lot of characters in the game, but West Ham have quite a few. Antonio, obviously, Snoddy, I mean, we lost him, he was a great character. Lingard is a great character. Yeah, no, I just think it's great, man. I still love it. I'm so this season is the most. I mean, I've been at the club for 20 years, and this is the most excited I've been, just for what it could be. Not even this season, but what we can build if we keep going in this trajectory. That's a long word. That's a long word for Thursday night. And also, I wanted to get you on, Bill, because I always talk about the charity stuff. That's the main thing I wanted to chat about. So obviously, You tell me us about the charity stuff, mate, because it's great to publicise it.
I mean, it all started off about 4. Yeah, so I just check the shirt. It started off about 4 years ago. Yeah, so
I'm 20. I'm 30, so that's 20. Yeah, 4. Yeah. Good maths. Quick maths.
So that shirt, I got it when I did the first walk. So this is the second time I'm going to do this, and it was 26 years that I did it that time, and it was a bit annoying that year because I had to plan it around the bloody summer games or whatever it was that was hosting at the stadium that year. So I managed to creep into the club shop while everyone was queuing with their tickets out to go see some geezer run around in a circle. Yeah, and I mean, it started off about 4 years ago, and obviously my brother, to explain on him a little bit more, he was 7 years old in March 1991. He passed away. He had a brain tumor. Through the years, he was born with it. They did surgery on it because it grew outside the brain originally, and they've cut it off and said, right, cool, it's done. And then I think it was just under a year later, they'd found out it started growing inside, and from that point on, there was nothing that they could do in regards to it. And then obviously he got some fantastic experiences. He got to walk out as a mascot for West Ham versus Aldershot in the January 1991 FA Cup third round. It wasn't a replay; it was the third round game that we held at Upton Park, and my dad's got the program, and he was on the front page of the program, and if you're close to the West Ham history, you realise there's only ever been two people on the front page of a West Ham program, and the other person is the Queen. So that's quite a high honour to share if it's not very much publicised. And I was born September 1993, so I never got the chance to meet him throughout my life, but I've always felt that there's always been a connection. If someone passes away in your family, the stories are told, and you always felt it. So that year I decided to do something that I feel like he'd be proud of. So I did a 22-hour walk, I believe it was, around London to every Premier League stadium in London at that time. I did miss out on Crystal Palace just because it's miles
It's a
away.
shithole, basically, more than anything.
Yeah. I use the excuse of saying that the Crystal Palace Stadium technically isn't in London because it's more sort of borderline Sussex. And so I started off at Chelsea and then walked up to Arsenal. It was bad timing on my half again because I had to miss out on Tottenham because at the time they was rebuilding White Shite Lane. And then I went from Arsenal straight to West Ham. And then this year was a big year because it was his 30th anniversary. So I thought, what, I'm going to do it again. And, I've got access to the stadiums now, so I can do it properly. And I've got the addition of Fulham as well because they weren't in the Premier League the last time. It's in order to raise money for cancer research, because they have their own research department for brain tumours as well. And it's something that I believe, it doesn't get the attention of. Very recently, we lost Paul Ritter to a brain tumour who was in Friday Night Dinner. And, just before him, Glenn Roeder as well.
Of course,
when he passed away from the tumour. And I was actually quite lucky to meet Glenn Roeder. I think it was the first season that he was West Ham manager. My mum used to work in the ticket office back in the day, and she managed to get a family pass into, I think it was a players' dinner for that season. And then right at the end, all the players are sat in a sort of line in a square, so you can go around and get all your signatures and stuff. I never met any of the players because I spent half an hour talking to Glenn Roeder, and he was looking after me. And my dad tells me to this day that they'd all finished up getting all their signatures, and I was like, "Where's Billy? Where's Billy? We can't find Billy anywhere." And my dad spotted me with Glenn Roeder, and he's walked up. And Glenn Roeder shook my dad's hand, and my sister was with him. She was not much older than me, so she must have been about 12 at the time. And he's looked at her and gone, he's looked at him and her and gone, "Is this your son?" And he's like, "No, that's my daughter, and that's my son, yeah." And he was like, "Oh, you can talk for England, this boy, I tell you." And for me, it's always been sort of the situation of I just want to make him proud because I never got a chance to meet him, and doing something like this and raising the money for such a important cause is aligning to that, and obviously some of the funds are going to go to the Bobby Moore Fund as well, because again, I think I saw somewhere that testicular cancer or bowel cancer is the highest killer in men. From a very young age as well, so it's something that I really want to just do for that and for my brother as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. When you plan the actual walk, when's the actual event itself?
I believe I've penciled it in for June the 19th or the 20th, whichever one's a Saturday. Nice. I think it's the 19th. Nice. Obviously I want to try and get the season out of the way first because I'm planning it on a Saturday, and I don't want to end up walking through Fulham, Chelsea or Tottenham fans with a West Ham shirt on.
Particularly then,
we're playing at home as well, but I thought it'd take a long way to the stadium.
Yeah, it's a long way around, man. No, that's phenomenal, mate, and I think that's great. And obviously we've got the Just Giving site there, and I think it's cool, mate. I think it's a really cool thing to do, and obviously your brother will be very proud of. And as you said, there's a real connection with West Ham, and obviously recently Glenn, and as you said with Bobby, bowel cancer and brain, the tumour for Glenn as well. And I was gutted about Paul Ritter as well because I loved him. I thought, I loved Friday Night Project. My daughter as well, trying to explain to her as well, why there wasn't going to be any more. It's a shame, but
I mean, my brother as well, just to touch on him a little bit more. the West Ham team of that season, his favourite player was Ian Bishop, like to the point where he didn't have a middle name until he was about 5, and he asked for his middle name to be Bish. So he spent his life being called Robbie Bish Reardon, and the team from '91, from what I've been told and the stories I've been told, they all absolutely loved him. Tony Gale was obviously the captain at the time and walked Robbie out, and obviously the referee shook his hand and everything. And the walk from the sideline to the touchline, you don't realise it's such a long walk to the kickoff spot. And he was knackered on the way up, and Tony Gale's picked him up and he's brought him all the way back. And he's turned around to my dad and I didn't realise he was as heavy as he was, because Tony Gale was knackered by the time he got back to the other end of the pitch.
Style it out.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
When he passed away and he had his funeral, Ian Bishop and I believe Gale attended the funeral, and they was talking, and I can't remember who the manager was at the time. I think it was Billy Bonds actually. And he did say Billy Bonds would have sent the whole team to his funeral if they didn't have training for a match that happened on the weekend as well. So he really did have a special touch to people, and that was something that I've always been told as well.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously, Bish is a friend of the show. Bish is a friend of the show, so we'll make sure that Bish, when we put it up, we'll tag him and get him to retweet it and everything, and we'll make sure we get as much exposure as possible, because I think it's a great thing you're doing, and we do, obviously there's a lot, we do a lot of charity stuff, but I think this one's so personal to you, man. Obviously we had Jake Crump and his dad's, he's getting a robot arm for his dad, and obviously Isla's stuff and all that stuff, it's because there's so much, I think, the generosity of West Ham fans. They're such a generous bunch, and doing the stuff for the food banks. Obviously last year we did a lot of stuff for the food banks, and we raised a lot of money for them as well. And we'll get this up and running, man. We'll get some dosh on the board, that's for sure.
I remember tweeting Bishop actually when I done it the last time, and I believe he retweeted. I might have it in my retweet somewhere. But Bishop remembers him, and that's what's incredible to me, is that 26 years ago, and Bishop could still remember him. An ex-WHU employee. He helped me out the first time, and I think he retweeted something that I put up a couple of months ago. And he can remember him as well, and he was only a little. In his teens, I think. Do
you know what though? And that's the thing that surprised me about. Obviously, we've interviewed lots of players, and some of them don't remember who they played next. The last. But there's obviously things like that are so poignant that there's no way they would ever forget your brother, and that will be arched in there. And obviously, we know I know Gailey quite well now. I know Reg, so we'll make sure we'll get as much exposure to get this out, man. Because as you said, 30th anniversary, and it's we'll as always, the West Ham not always club together when it's one of their own, and so it's a great thing. And maybe what we'll do, because hopefully by then, if Boris's roadmap's all right, I'll meet you at London Stadium.
Yeah,
and we'll do a live thing at London. We'll do a live thing that I've just my wife. My wife just bought me a new camera. Sorry. My wife treats me like I'm not. She's like she's the missus, really. She's bought me a new camera today for my birthday, which isn't for September. So we'll do some nice stuff. Hopefully, because we can all meet up without any masks or any shit like that. So by then, hopefully, so we'll make sure we do some stuff, and we'll get we'll meet you. Are you finishing at the London Stadium?
Yeah. So
nice.
the first time I'd done it, I finished at the London Stadium, and this time I'm planning to finish at the London Stadium. So I'll literally be going from West London round to East London or Southwest London, technically. Tottenham. I might, pass QPR. So I'm just because my mate's a QPR fan, I might go and see that. It's and it's an experience for me as well, because I think the only I've been to a few away games here and there, but the only one that sort of sticks out is Ipswich, and it's never been a London club that I've ever gone and seen away.
It's a bit far to walk for that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't walk from Ipswich to London. There's no chance for that. I'd have to be walking down the side of the M25.
Yeah, down the M11 more. Yeah, M11, A11. I know it very well. But it's all good, man. Yeah, we'll sort all this out. We'll make sure we get some good publicity and get some money on the ball for the cancer research. My wife's husband. I'm my wife's. What is going on with me today? Seriously, is this gin? My wife's dad passed the bowel cancer, and so anything to do with like I'm always on for it because I just think it's you need to get as much money to raise it to get rid of these horrible diseases as possible, man. But yeah, we'll sort that right. Anyway, let's get on to the 11. That's why people tune in.
Yeah.
So, as I said, we interview everyone we've interviewed, apart from Ian Bishop, actually, ironically, Nigeria Coke and Harry Redknapp. Everyone's given an 11. So they put together 11 of the players. You can pick whoever you want, whatever criteria, but the only rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. That's the only rule.
Okay.
That's the only rule. Otherwise, we'd all put Bobby Moore and Trevor Brooke in and Billy Bonds, and we never saw any of them play. I saw Billy manage, I saw Trevor manage, but I never saw them play. So they can't be. Well, technically, they could have been because I was alive when they played, but I never saw them. So I stick to my own rules. I make them and I stick to them. So let's start off in goal. Bill, who's in goal?
For me, first off, I thought McCluskey. Honest, Ludek. You can't get a bit of Ludek, but I can't remember when he finished playing at West Ham. I'm not entirely sure if I might have missed him because obviously, back to thinking the first time round, obviously Shaka Hislop sticks in my mind the most because he was a great goalkeeper for us. But I think I'll play it safe and say Shaka in goal for me. He was a phenomenal keeper, and he didn't get as much credit as I believed he should have deserved because he was phenomenal for us. He saved us in quite a few games as well, and he was again another West Ham man that was all about the community, and he loved being a player for us.
Very much so, very much so. He was, and he was. I call them boomerang players when they go and come back, and obviously he went and came back, and obviously when he came back, he ended up turning out for the FA Cup final in 2006, and which is not a bad time to come back, I suppose. But he still loves the club. He has like split loyalties between West Ham and Newcastle. I think when we interviewed him, I think he had a West Ham t-shirt on, but he had a massive like Newcastle crest behind him. So he had and it makes sense, and probably Reading, he's probably got these three clubs of his affiliation, but honestly, yeah. And the players, we've interviewed lots of players who played with him, so laid back. He was vertical, he was horizontal. He was so laid back and so cool. Honestly, we've had him on. He was an utter gentleman. He was sweating buckets. It was last summer, and he lives in the East Coast because he does stuff for ESPN. So it was at New York, he was in the New York area he lives in, and his AC wasn't working. He was sweating buckets, bless him, but he was still such a nice bloke. And he still, when you feel a bit awkward, you think you're going to rush through it. We were there for hours afterwards talking about memories of living in Loughton and stuff like that. And no, I love him. I love Shaka.
Yeah.
Right, Shaka's in goal. Defence. Who are you going to start with, man?
I'll start off with a big Julian Dix. I managed to catch him when he come back from Liverpool. Yeah. He always knew how to put in a performance, and watching him when I was growing up, it'd always be fantastic because he wouldn't tackle, he'd lunge at his players, almost like a rugby player, but going in feet first. And watching his penalties were always great for me as well because he was a player that he was the last of the generation of being able to go home and eat a dirty kebab before, and then wake up with an hangover and absolutely just control a defensive line. So yeah, he was always brilliant for me.
It's so true. And I love the fact that he was, when we've interviewed him, and I asked him, I was like, why didn't you ever warm up pre-match? I didn't need to. I didn't need to. Harry told me to warm up once. I came in 5 minutes, and I turned my ankle. And I said, look, that's what because my warm up, honestly, Russ, was a can of Coke, a Mars bar, and I'd sit in a bath with all my kit on, a hot bath. And then he'd go on and play, as you said, play 90 minutes. And and again, it's back to the aspirational, relatable. He was relatable. He wasn't chiseled like Cristiano Ronaldo, was he? He was just like a normal bloke. Ripped the collar of his shirt, skinheads, socks around his ankles. If he turned up at a pub team, you wouldn't bat your eyelids, would you? And he was he had that sort of physique, but he had this God-given talent. He had such a wand of a left foot on him, and I loved him. I absolutely loved him, and lots of people did. And I asked him that question. So, how do you feel that that there's people out there and you're their idol? They love you. And he went, well,
Yeah.
Russ, to be honest, for everyone that loves me, there's someone that fucking hates me. And that's the way I look at it. And I was like, fair enough. Do you know what? Fair enough, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was great. I mean, even when he came back as an assistant coach, you could still see that after all those years, he still had that passion for us. He still wanted us to do well. And him and Bilic were great for us. I mean, again, like I said earlier, they did feel like they winged and managed to sort of escape quite a few games really well. But they were sort of like what every West Ham fan wants down the line. I mean, we're all hoping in 10 or 15 years that Mark Noble is going to become a manager for West Ham, and next to him, he's probably going to have somebody along the lines of maybe Kevin Nolan if he's still about. He's going to have somebody that he was great with, and yeah, Julian Dix always had that chemistry with us as well. Because again, like you said, he was so relatable. Like if everybody in East London, you'd rather have a Coke and a Mars bar than jog for an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. And he never did yeah. And also, I don't think we ever made as much of the fact when he was part of the coaching staff at West Ham. Do you know what I mean? It was not an afterthought, but it wasn't like, he was like, it was great that he was there, but I don't think we made enough of it. We didn't build it up, or, and that was him because he didn't want any of that. He didn't want, the last game at the Boleyn, when we had all the fireworks and the taxis, he was meant to have one of the taxis, but he didn't want to do it. It's like, I'm not. That's not for me. I don't like being in the limelight. You know what I mean? But you're Julian Dix. You're Julian Dix, and you're a club legend. And this is the last game at the Boleyn. I mean, you're I'm all right, mate. Don't want to be part of it. Billy Bonds was the same. Billy Bonds didn't go to a taxi. Yeah. He turned around and went home. And it's their men. They're so humble. They don't see, they don't like to think of the limelight they created when they played for the club. And that to me means so much more than someone who is at the opening of every envelope. You know what I mean? He turns up to everything. It just makes it so special when he does turn up, because you're like, fuck, it's Julie Dix. You know what I mean? It's still something very special about having him there.
They've got him and Bonds and Noble as well, and they've got the air of fan first, player second, and that's what makes them so special to us.
Totally. Right. Okay, Dixie is in. Who is next then, my friend?
I'd have to go recent for this. Someone that's still in the squad. So I think I'm trying to get it all in order, but I'll mess them up down the line. But Ogbonna, I reckon I'd have in there as well, just purely based on his heart, because he goes out every day. He isn't methodical or he's a tactical person. You can see him thinking, but he plays like his heart's on his sleeve. He always has that passion. When a ball's come in or someone's running at him, he'll commit to whatever's in front of him. He won't backtrack or face, wait and think. He'll go in for it. He's a very solid defender, and just based on the way he plays, I just think he's an excellent centre back.
He is. He really is. And it's brilliant that he's found this, he's such in form now. He's found this form, and obviously ironic that it's towards the end of his career, his career at West Ham, arguably. But I think, he's just great. And there's no coincidence that we started leaking goals when he was out. Him and Dawson work as a pair, or just a trio with Cress. And I mean, one of them's not working, one of them's there. You notice it. So hopefully, obviously, typically on Saturday, Dawson's now out, and because he's suspended. Because that's just such a West Ham. When we almost got the whole band back together, and it didn't, and never quite worked. But hopefully for the next game, hopefully for Burnley or whatever the next game, we'll have him back. But I like Angelo. I think he's a great, and he's grafted his way back. He wasn't always great, he had some shit games, but he's just found this form, a bit like Cress, really, sort of refound this form, and fair play to him, because now he's a player you don't want not in the squad. When as soon as he's available, you put him straight back in, and that just is the mark of the man. Right, we'll put Angelo in. Who's next?
A bit of a wild card on this one, but I'm going to say late Christian Daly, because I never got him when he was another one that I only saw sort of the end of. But again, he was I see him on Instagram and stuff now, and he's a very West Ham heavy fan as well, and Christian, he might not have been the best defender we've ever had, bless him, but he was always committed to the cause, and I think that's what he played for us for quite a while. He was excellent with the fans and he part of us.
No, you're right, man. You're right. I think with Christian, he just seemed to get West Ham fans, and he was there at the right time. He was at a time where we needed a bit of sort of old school leadership, and he brought it. And just think, the fact that people still sing his song, always is a mark of a great player. They still sing Ludo's song, and play and Billy Bonds' song. That denotes someone who's still in the forefront of your mind. And top man, Christian.
He's had three generations now, West Ham fans that wouldn't mind letting him shag their wives.
I know, I know.
That's how much of an impact he had on us.
That is a list you have to work your way through, surely, man. Bless him. And he's still got curly hair. Too. So there you go.
Yeah.
Right, we've got Dick Savannah Daly. Who is next?
I keep playing back to John Moncur, but I couldn't remember whether he was a midfielder or a defender for us.
You can put him where he was. I mean, he was a midfielder, but if you want to put him, if you've got too many midfielders, put him in the back. He'd have a go. John would have a go.
Yeah, John was on a similar level for Dix for me in terms of the fact that he was very rough on the pitch, and he was always an excellent person to watch because he'd have a go. And when I was younger, they were the players that I attracted to the most. Were just the ones that I'd be like, they'd get on the pitch, and as soon as that whistle's gone, they'd look at whoever they're facing off and go, "I'm going to have you."
Yeah.
There's no two ways about that. So he was always excellent.
And the thing about John is, I think that I think people forget sometimes that he wasn't just he was the yellow card merchant towards the end of his career. We had Scott Minnow on today, and he said he spent 3 years. Or 4 years, I think it's 4 years at the time. 4 years still trying to decide what John Moncur's preferred foot was, because he would ping him on the left foot, ping him on the right foot, and he could never figure it out. And we had Richie Garcia on, who played when he was a kid and played with John. And the piece of advice John told all the kids was learn to play with both feet. And so literally all the kids would be playing with left hand, right footed, and he was a fantastic. I mean, Glenn Hodder wanted him to take him to Chelsea after he moved from Swindon, and he went to West Ham instead. And but yeah, I love him. I love John. He's an absolute nutter, but I love him. So we're doing so we're right so far. Look, there we go. We've got 4 so far. We'll put John can go right back. I don't care. I think he'd do a job there, actually, to be honest, nowadays. Right, okay, let's carry on. Who's your next one? Let's go into midfield then, my man.
Into midfield. I mean, I've got to have him because he's been a staple throughout the entire time that I've watched West Ham. It's got to be Mark Noble, controlling the middle. Because again, I looked up to it's a weird situation because I looked up to him growing up, and I got to watch him throughout his entire career because he never left us. And people label him Mr. West Ham, and he is the second generation of Mr. West Ham, but it's hard to replace boots that were as big as Bobby Moore's, but his shoes next down the line are very big to be filled as well. And just watching him grow up with us and see his time with us and how well he's developed, and just the pure passion and love that he has for the club is similar to, again, he's a fan in my eyes. He's a fan first and a player second, because
definitely
he's especially when I've grew up and watched him, because he's resonated with me. He has been West Ham, and he's retiring at the end of the season, and it's going to be a very, very weird year for that.
Yeah, well, you're right. For many people, he's been there ever since they've supported the club, and it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. It's a very unusual thing to have a fan in your club playing, but also being your captain, and also being a one-man club, and and he is. I mean, as I said, I'm very fortunate to still be at the stadium now, and obviously I'm watching the games, and I always revert back to the Chelsea game last season, ironically, when we beat them, and obviously Yarma scored in that last minute, whatever it was, and Mark wasn't in the squad. But he was watching. The auxiliary players used to sit in the disabled areas because it's already 2 meters apart, isn't it? Really. Now they're in the box, so they're in one of the boxes now, which is fair enough. And he was watching the game like you and me were watching the game, kicking every ball, shouting at the ref, and it was. And I wish I'd recorded it because it was just such an amazing thing to watch. Because he's a fan, but you actually saw it. And no, I love him. I think he's a fan. And as you said, hopefully, he'll. I know he's trying. I know that they're doing these badges already, and you think he would move straight into working with the youth team, and then who knows? Who knows? 1 year could be taking the helm or getting involved. And it wouldn't be. We'd all love that. We'd all love that without a doubt. Because he'd be able to impart what it means to be a West Ham player to those kids who he brings in.
Unfortunately, he is probably the end of a dying breed now, in terms of players that will spend the rest of their entire career at one club, because you don't get that loyalty anymore. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that Declan will follow suit, but
he's got the best chance. He's got the best chance because he's got that sort of. That's what I mean. He's got that sort of old school mentality. When everything was flaring up with the Super League, and it means that you can't play for your country or there's no way Declan Rice would go to another club for money. No way.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It's for football reasons. If he'd ever leave West Ham, and as long as if we're still in the top 6, top 7, every season. And as you said, the odd cup. He's already in sort of the England squad, first team regular. So, the only thing he's had aspirations for potentially is winning the league, really, and winning Europe. And who says we can't win the Europa Leagues and stuff like that? If we've got the infrastructure behind us. So, he's not stupid as well, and he knows. He knows when Martin Noble plays a 7, we put him down for an 8 because he's Martin Noble. Next year he hands over the keys to Declan Rice, and he's got the keys to the castle, and he will be the poster boy. And he's already played 130, 140 odd games for us already. He could be up there with the likes of Billy Bonds and Frank Lampard Senior and Bobby Moore in terms of appearances if he carried on the way he's going. He's got another 15 years at the club. You know what I mean? Anything's possible, but yeah, we'll keep hoping. We'll keep hoping. Right, okay. Noble's in. Who's next then?
I'd have to have the man Trevor Sinclair on the right, to be honest with you.
Tricky Trev. Yes.
Tricky Trev. He was superb to watch. Again, he was another person that made me fall in love with football. I mean, I used to play it when I was a youth, but I was more of a Mark Noble, straight as you go player. I'll pass it where it needs to be known. Not comparing myself to the East London Iniesta whatsoever. But yeah, Trevor Sinclair was just excellent to watch because he was another one of those players that just dominate where his position. He was on that right side, and when he was running up and down that wing, it was like nobody could catch up with him.
No,
and obviously you can't forget about the ball he made to Paolo Di Canio when he scored that fantastic goal at Wimbledon. Sorry, and I mean, again, he's another one that has a very sort of passion for West Ham, and I see him on Twitter every now and then, and he seems to be more of a Man City boy now. But he still has, he's still got a love for the.
He's still got it. He's still got it. I know Trevor quite well now, and he has still got it, and more so than you would realise. Honestly, and that's always surprises me with footballers, because I think my assumption is that they see it as a career and stuff. But you mentioned Bish, and you mentioned someone like Sinclair and Pete and Julian and Christian Daly and Shaka. These. Once they played for West Ham, it's still there, man. It's and Trevor very much so, very very much so. In fact, I always mention it because I think it always takes me by surprise. And Bish as well, the same thing. Obviously, around the stadium at the moment, there's these sort of Panini stickers, posters. Took a picture of Trev's one, took a picture of Bish's one, sent it to them individually, and said, "Oh, I don't know if you've seen this because obviously there's no one there, so we can't pictures of it." They both sent me incredible DMs back saying basically, it was one of the greatest privileges they've ever experienced. And it just took me back because I was thinking it's a fucking poster, really, on the side of a wall. But what it meant to them that they got selected, that, the club have picked them to be a poster boy on the side of the, he just meant so much to them. It just took me back, and I love both of them, and then Trevor as well. And we'll get a retweet now because you put Sinks in. He retweets every time, or at least he'll like it every time he's in it. He always does it, bless him. So he's in. Right, we've got Sinks, we've got Noble. Who's next? Who's next in midfield?
God, I'm finishing up that in my head because I never wrote this down or planned this before I joined this. I'm doing it all in my head as I go.
Good.
And I'm really tossed up in the middle, obviously between Declan Rice and the captain that brought us back into the Premier League, Kevin Nolan.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, for me, I don't want to be a naysayer, and I do love Declan Rice, but he's been floating about the first team for now 3 years, I believe it was, or 2.5, because it was sort of David Moyes that really started forcing him in. But yeah, I think heart on it, ignoring what my mind's saying, I am going to go with Kevin Nolan because
nice.
I never appreciated him when he was with us at first because I thought we managed to float in because we signed Andy Carroll alone. I think that's literally.
And we signed. And it was Big Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Big Sam, and then obviously looking back and what he accomplished with us, and how focused he was, and how much he realised that West Ham were a Championship team, West Ham were a Premier League team, and he wanted to get us back to where we were under his control, and he was an excellent soldier for us. And even now, seeing him come back, I never realised that West Ham meant as much to him as it did.
No,
when he came back to us the second and third time, when David Moyes hired him for the backroom staff, and it was you've really sort of learned to respect him, especially now that you look back and you realise he was a guy that saved us. He was a guy that passed that ball to Vazte put the ball in the box when Vazte scored that goal. Even though Colton Cole might have messed up his line a little bit there, but Kevin Nolan was the man that was in control of us, and he did a really good job at what he was there to do.
And you're bang on. I think he's one of those people, when you look back at great West Ham captains in the recent history, he's up there. He because he dropped down from the Premier League. He was doing all right at Newcastle. He was happy, but he dropped down. Sam wanted him there, and you could see why. He was the linchpin between the players and Sam. And we've had a lot of players who have played with him as captain, and they best captain they've ever played with. They felt it was fantastic. If ever there was a problem, it'd be straight on Sam's door, banging it down, saying you got to give this guy a new contract, or he was the locker room leader, so to speak. And it's great that he's back at the club because he just brings a bit of that old school mentality to the team. Yeah. And the coaching staff are old school. In that respect, you got Moisey, you got Alan Irvine, you got Phelan, Phelan's more new school really, but you got Stuart Pearce, you got Nolan. Yeah. These guys have been there, done it, written the T-shirt, written the book, all that stuff. So, I think Kevin Nolan's a fantastic guy, and he dragged us up back into the Premier League. First time of asking, so. And I think then he finished the top goal scorer for the club the season after. I think when we were in the Premier League, I think he got a dozen or so goals. So, still was banging them in. Yeah. And if anything, he's imparted that really nasty bastard mentality on corners where we always have the Kevin Nolan position right in front of the goalkeeper, standing on his toes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's it. I'm sure he's trying to kick the whole taking short corner things out of the team because that's not the way to go forward. We managed to get lucky with it once, and now we're really just trying to do that again. Yeah, Kevin Nolan. I
don't mind doing it once, a game, but it's when it sort of they keep going back to, doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result is the first sign of madness or something like that. That's sort of what it is, you know what I mean? But I'm sure he's very anti that. I'm sure he is. Right, okay, let's put Sinclair. We've got Noble, we've got Nolan. Who's next?
It was a tricky one for me. I am going to have to put him in just because of the job he done for us. Yeah. But I generally don't. I have a like for him and I have a respect for him because of what he done, but I still haven't forgiven him for the way he left us.
Yeah.
And obviously it has to be Payet.
Yeah.
because he was again for the first season at Upton, the final season, sorry, at Bowling, and bits and pieces of the first season at the London Stadium, he really was a gem for us, and he really did push us forward. But again, it was a situation where the end of his time with us was very bittersweet, and he could have gone about things a lot better than he did. And I did get a little bit of respect. I think it was 3 or 4 seasons ago when apparently he said that he did want to come back and make amends. But yeah, he was phenomenal for us. And again, he was another player that nobody looked at because of his age. And then he came over to us, and he was probably the best player in the season in the league for that season.
Definitely.
And again, he was excellent, and you can't forget the free kicks against United and Palace, because they will. I think they'll be etched in West Ham's history forever, no matter how he.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally right, man. They'll be etched in history because of the, and I always saw that last season. Now looking obviously back, reflecting it, it was a phenomenal season for us. But you look back at it, and we said it before with Bilic. It was almost, he did wing it, I think, a little bit, to be fair. And looking back at it, sort of taking my claret tinted glasses off, and someone like Payet was he was a gem, and we were very fortunate. We wouldn't have not had that season without him. We wouldn't have anywhere near it. We'd have struggled and probably been bottom half of the table, which would have been a sad way to send off the old girl. So I'm thankful for having Payet. I mean, technically, he's the best player I've ever seen at West Ham, ever, and never will do. Not my best player, because I think there's another player who I think is my best player, but technically he was the best player. We will very probably never ever have a Ballon d'Or nominee playing while they're still playing for West Ham, not getting in Messi when he's 54. So having someone who's actually a Ballon d'Or nominee in your team, and yeah, he was the man. He was the one that all my mates wanted. And again, an unusual when we were at the Euros, and he was starring for France, and he was your player, and everyone was supporting France, who was a West Ham player, a West Ham fan, and obviously seeing Bilic there and on the table like a really proud dad, and it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful time.
It was, and I always love him for. Sounds horrible. I do love Cristiano Ronaldo, but I always love him for taking Cristiano out. Completely accidental, as much as it may be, but it was excellent, because when players play against someone like him, they have that fear of approaching him, and Payet just thought, fuck it, you're coming my way, and I'm gonna
do you. No, exactly, totally, man. Right, okay, we'll put Dimmy Payet in up front. Who are we gonna have? Who's your first striker?
Obviously, it has to be Di Canio for me.
Yeah.
Because again, I grew up through his time at West Ham. He was literally my first taste of claret and blue. I managed to get there to watch his volley against Wimbledon, and even back then, it obviously you see it on the TV and on YouTube and whatever, and it's still voted. I believe it's still voted as one of the best goals ever scored in English football, and again, it's another reason why I brought Trevor Sinclair in, because of his beautiful cross into Di Canio at the time as well. And again, he sort of etched and cemented the passion that people have for West Ham into me as well, because he was passionate for us. And you can't forget the game with Brentford, where he was getting tackled left, right and centre, and the ref weren't giving him anything, and everyone chanting Paolo Di Canio, and he comes along and bloody scores a hat-trick and gets us back into the game again. He was excellent. And then when he came back for the final season, and for the last game at the Bowling, and you can see he was brought to tears when everyone started chanting his name again. And the importance we have on him. I think he's got, is it on above his heart that he's got the West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, something like that. Yeah, and I love the fact that for me, and again, a bit like Payet, and they're all a certain generation, and they all have their own song. And so that Paolo Di Canio song was just so synonymous with him and that period. And that Bradford City game, that 5-4 was but that epitomised that whole time at West Ham. You know, that was a really fun time at West Ham. You had some
Yeah.
amazing characters. You had some great footballers. You had players who you wouldn't question their commitment. You had these young players coming through as well. The kids was winning the FA Youth Cup as well. We were finishing high up in the league, and we were all enjoying watching football from an entertainment perspective. And that's why when Pyatt was the best technical player, but Di Canio was my best ever player because he had that entertainment value. He had that sort of nutter personality that we all love in a West Ham player, and unpredictable, and you didn't know. You turned up and you thought, okay, is this going to be Paolo Di Canio, the genius player, or is this going to be Paolo Di Canio, the petulant child, or is this to be Paolo Di Canio, grabbing a ball when it's going to score because the goalkeeper's got injured, and all these types of things just add to the mystique of him. And he was just, and he was a fantastic, obviously we've interviewed loads of players who played with him, one of the best trainers. He was so professional. And he was just a genius, an utter genius. And
he was, and his goal against Chelsea really epitomises how much of a genius he was on the pitch as well, because he went from a throw-in to chest it, then set himself up and score a half volley from outside the bloody penalty area from the throw-in section, and it's just like you'll never see someone do that again. No. And again, his passion for the club. I mean, you see him every now and then on Sky Sports Italy, and he's wearing a West Ham tie, or he's got a claret and blue shirt on, and he still has that. He still has that love for the club, and it's great.
That's what I love. I love things like that. Just these little subtle things, just to show you're still like in the first lockdown when there was the video of him doing kick-ups in the garden singing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles," but he wasn't like, and the bit I liked, he wasn't wearing one of his shirts. He was wearing like a 1950s West Ham shirt, like vintage retro one. So someone had to buy that, whether he ordered it or his agent ordered it. There was a process needed to wear that shirt, and just these little details. You said when he's on Sky Italia wearing a claret and blue, shirt and tie combo. And we had he did one of those player nights once, and they had and we had Nicky from West Ham Fan TV on a long time ago, and I was talking to him about Paolo because obviously he interviewed Paolo Di Canio, and he always talks about this story which just epitomised him in my view. They were like backstage, and Nicky went up to Paolo. Obviously Paolo turns up looking $1 million as he always does. Went, Paolo, you look fantastic. And he just turned his collar and went, I always dress up for my family. Done. Mic drop. There's nothing else you can say. Yeah. He was like totally welled up hearing that story. But yeah, I love him. Love him. And even we've interviewed guys who met him when he was at Swindon, and that he'd bring him into their office. He'd open his drawer up and it'd be full of West Ham stuff and talking about West Ham. So even when he was at Fulham, Swindon or Sunderland, he still had like a West Ham drawer in his office. I just loved it. Right, who's the last person then? Then Bill, we have him.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this the whole time through. I was gonna say one person because it was the first shirt that I ever owned as a West Ham boy. It was the light and navy blue combo. I think it was a Fila shirt, and it had Samasi Blu's name on the back of it and the number 2. And I don't know what my dad thought about getting a Boo number 2 on the back of my shirt, but unfortunately it's not gonna be him.
He'll be devastated, Samasi. He'll be devastated.
I do apologise, Samasi.
I'll text him and let him know.
But yeah, again, it's someone that's had a passion for us, and it's Colton Cole. He was an absolute trooper for us. I mean, I think I can't remember. I think he's the highest goal scorer I think we've ever had. I might be wrong about that. Or he's second.
He's up there. I think he's
up there,
third. I think he's third or fourth, something like that. Yeah, he was. I think Antonio's very close to him. But I think it's Di Canio. I think for Premier League, it's Di Canio. He's the third. No, is he third? Third most Premier League appearances for West Ham. I think it's Martin Noble. Cresswell's just taken him over, and then it's him. And I think he's in the top 10. I know it for sure. He's in the top 10 Premier League goal scorers at West Ham, which is incredible.
Yeah. And again, he's got an excellent personality. I mean, you see him in the interviews after the game and stuff like that, and he was just funny to watch. It was funny to even watch on a pitch. I can't remember who we played against, but I remember when he scored a goal for us, and I think it had been snowing the day, and there's pictures still up of him now playing in the snow, and he was just like that. And again, he was another one that Chelsea didn't want anymore, so we took him in and showed Chelsea what they'd actually lost, because he's a fantastic player, and he always again was someone that put his heart on the sleeve. And I remember when that thing with West Brom came up, and obviously he was very upset that he never got to go there in the end, but he was happy he got to stay, because that's really what he wanted to do, and he wanted to be like with us for the rest of his career, a bit like James Collins. And Cole was fantastic. Again, what people say, he was so good we signed him twice. Yeah. He's an excellent person, and I believe it'd be great to have a beer with as well, to be honest.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. He's just that sort of. He just seems like such a nice bloke. Just seems like a right diamond geezer, and And who knows? He may be coming on the show soon, but who knows? But yeah, I love Cole. I love him, and that's the team. That's the team, man. I like it. It's a nice team. Do you know what I like about it, Bill? Is you've got some players in there who don't always get picked. You've got Xhaka, you've got Daly, Monks, Nolan, Colton, and that's what I like, because sometimes it's nice to give a bit of praise, a bit of light on some players, because all these players have played for West Ham, and even if I've interviewed players who've played once or twice, that's once or twice more than you and me would, and we'd give our lives to have played once, you know what I mean? And they've played. I mean, Monk's played a shitload of games for us, and so did Nolan, you know, and Colton, you know, over 200 Premier League appearances for us, not including obviously the Championship appearances and stuff as well. But no, it's great. Bill, man, it's been lovely. I'm gonna throw up the Just Giving site again, just because I think it's important, and obviously we'll add to that when we go up. Obviously, it's been great, man. An hour and 15 minutes. When it happened? Jeez.
Yeah, I looked up at that just then there as well.
Time flies.
It really does. It really does. I'm sure a few of your viewers will be looking at that, and I'll probably end up looking back on my team as well and thinking, what the fuck am I thinking there? I'm not bringing people in based on, you know, how good they were or anything like that. It's just, for me, West Ham's been a family, and to see people that have either long gone or played for many other teams after us but still have that love for us is something that's special. I mean,
and do you know what? They all do, man. They all do. As I said, we've had over, I think I've interviewed now approaching 70 ex-players for the channel, and do you know what? Every one of them, not one of them has ever said a bad thing about West Ham. They all love their time there. They love the interaction with the fans. They love the time in the team, even if it wasn't a successful team, or, you know, even if it's someone like Luke Chadwick. He was only around for one season, played 30 odd games, but loved his time at West Ham. Wish he could have spent longer there, because he just loved the football and the fans and the sort of the working class mentality of the club and stuff like that. And you get that across everyone, man. You get it across everyone. But listen, Bill, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. And obviously, thanks everyone for watching as well. Whatever you do, give it a like, give it a share, subscribe. Make sure you check out the Just Giving site as well. Let's raise a bunch of money for cancer research and the Bobby Moore Foundation, stuff like that. And from myself and from Bill, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Get those jabs. Come on, you irons, and we'll see you very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Much love.